Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Don't forget to subscribe to Candid Frank Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. Yes, please subscribe. Now, joining me is the host of many things along with football, David Morassutti.
How are you doing, Frank?
Not bad, not bad. Uh, I, I feel much better. I had some physical issues. I had some problems that went back about 6 weeks, and I think I've recovered a little bit. And anyway, I hope so. So anyway, so my health's a lot better. So I'm really pleased about that. I didn't complain about it while it was going on because I didn't want to whine about it. I just want to be positive about it. So positively, things are better. At least the last time I looked. So there you go. So for me, things are great. How are things with you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just trying getting ready for that warmer weather to come and get us ready for the outdoor stuff.
I'm going to do something here. Little technical a little technical faux pas I want to fix. There it is. It's fixed. Yeah. And how's your brother's getting married? How's that going? Not
Yeah,
him getting married, but the fun parts that you get to put together. You're planning on going to Orlando. I mean, come on now.
yeah. I'm getting a little bit of that preview of what the warmer weather is going to be like next week. So I'm looking forward to that.
Going for a Leaf game.
Going for a Leaf game.
Argos aren't playing, so you're not going to an Argos game.
No, unfortunately, no Argo game in Tampa, Florida. So that won't be happening.
There might be one or two players from that area. Maybe you can knock on their door and say, "Hey guys, so how's the off season going?"
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what they want. They want to be seeing me on there.
Next week, uh, no, 2 weeks from now, there's going to be a game on TV. We'll be able to see it here in Canada with McLeod Bethel Thompson playing for his team.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because a lot of people have been wondering. There's been a lot of talk about his decision to go play down there, and now it kind of because he made that decision to go play in the USFL. Now he's kind. I wouldn't say stuck there, but now we know for sure he is not going to be back in Canada anytime soon.
No, and good for him in the sense that he's still, all reports are, when you see his quotes, I don't know how accurately he's being quoted, but it's not about the USFL. It's always about that other league.
Always, it always is. And I mean, I get it. I really do get it. And that's kind of where he feels. I mean, he doesn't. Unfortunately, time isn't on his hand right now, so it's not on his side. So he's got to make the best decision of what he thinks is the right decision for him and his family. You can't knock a man for that. I think he has to just do what he can to get himself there. I just wonder if time is maybe going to be running a little short for him.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to speak to the other half of the glass. I'm going to talk about the half of the glass about opportunity, which he is taking. He's looking for an opportunity. He has played in every football league there is. So it's not about him wanting to experience playing in the USFL, I don't think. I think more or less what it is he's got a championship under his belt now. A couple of first place finishes leading teams to their first place finish. He has some stats that should at least raise interest, which it did in the USFL. He's the veteran guy that's trying out to be the number one quarterback, which gives him, in my mind, the inside track. He's not up against an experienced veteran to be the starter there. But I think the key issue here is, and the reason I brought it up is because you're going to the States, and that was a little segue that I wanted to have. I thought about him. I wish him all the best. I hope his dreams come true, whatever they are. But I guess the underlying reason why he's there, for the immediate future, it works out well for him because he'll be closer to home, and home will be closer to where his wife works, and they will be only a couple of hours apart, as opposed to what it was when he was playing here in Toronto.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I think a lot of people need to understand that they made a lot of sacrifices so that he could achieve his dream of winning the championship last year. That
And he had that, he got that,
he
so good
got
for
it.
him.
So and you got the sense that as soon as the championship was won, it was like okay, he accomplished it. He got the job done. Now the family's made so many sacrifices for him. He's got to start making some sacrifices for his family.
Okay, wish him all the luck. Wish all the players who leave the CFL to play for other leagues that they get the success they're looking for, and also the hopes of advancing their careers to the NFL, which is, it is magnetic going to the NFL, to say the least. So we wish all these players a great opportunity. Speaking about the players, the Ontario Labour Ministry is reviewing the CFLPA's workers' compensation concerns. It's been going on for years, almost forever, it seems, with every concern that players have, and there are many. There was the concern about coaches getting guaranteed contracts, which players didn't get. Um, no guaranteed money for CFL players. They got a little bit of that. They got a few things there. As far as players are concerned, there's the issue about Canadian US ratio, which is, it's too complicated conversation to have right now. But one of the primary issues that I feel is important personally, as a human being, watching these men sacrifice their bodies, every day, week in, week out, and it happened. They're doing it during the off season too. They may not be hitting anybody, and in some cases they are. They're practicing by doing that stuff, and receivers are practicing with quarterbacks who are practicing, defenders are practicing, and they're doing their thing that they get paid for. Injuries happen, and one of the biggest issues, and it's been an ongoing issue for the CFLPA, is the labor ministry has not stepped in, where the CFL players don't like the idea that if they get injured, they're only supported, as far as healthcare is concerned, for the calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a concern for them. How do you see, and please define this issue from your perspective?
I mean, you look at the fact that they're performing at a job for an industry, right? And usually that industry has to cover, in any case of any potential injury, long-term ramifications it can have on their life. The issue is obviously with the CFL, how many players are not citizens? That's the first problem. The second problem is how long can you determine that you're going to be able to keep them keep them compensated, right? And the issue here is, and this is specifically an Ontario issue because every province has done something different. It's not all the same for every province. And so I think when you look at this, the fact that the minister is saying that we need to improve our compensation system for injured workers, I think that speaks to the fact that there are inequities with the service and how it impacts players, especially in the CFL, where an injury that could end a career in the CFL, it doesn't just end the football career; it impacts your everyday life in a lot of ways. I mean, Arlen Bruce is the one that he's been trying to fight and trying to get his, try to fight against the fact that he wasn't covered for the injuries that he had post CFL career.
And
and
when you talk about cover, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah,
just to make sure people understand. When you're talking about covering, it's about healthcare. Go ahead, carry on.
it's healthcare. Like they're not; these guys aren't looking to get retirement pensions, things like that. They're looking just for the basic healthcare costs that come from the fact that they played a contact sport that comes with it comes with a lot of difficulties for a lot of athletes, and so it's hard. I understand the struggles they go with, and I also understand why certain provinces are like, well, it's hard for us to come up and say, here, we're going to write you a check for the what you're dealing with right now, because then you set the standard for a lot of other people that are going to be like, oh, you did it for them, so you're going to do the same thing for us,
Right,
right?
and to use two words that people will relate to and understand is workplace injuries.
Mhm.
The problem with the Canadian Football League players, I think they're looked at as independent contractors, which takes them they're beside being employees. They're not quite employees. They're independent contractors. Carry on.
That's the thing, right? They're not employees. They're considered contractors because they sign contracts, right? They're not in their contracts. They negotiate certain things like their health benefits and all those lovely things you have to negotiate in a contract. But it sucks to know that it continues to be a struggle for a lot of these athletes who, especially in the CFL, it's not guaranteed you're going to be up here very long, because we've seen how many times teams are ready to cut a player, right? And not
Yeah,
only and also the ramifications of cutting the player doesn't just extend financially in regards of how much salary they get, but also how long they've been working in the province and saying they're employed, and how that impacts the benefits and health costs they are covered for, because not everything is covered if you're not working full time, if you're not working a certain amount of time. So that's something I think that gets lost sometimes, for sure.
for those of you at home that want to hear a different version of what David just said, I'll just say it this way. Think of the football players as being part-time employees as opposed to being full-time employees. There are benefits associated with being a full-time employee that you don't get as a part-time employee. I'm speaking to people, David, in the sense that they might understand. There isn't a there I'm not trying to make a direct correlation between that situation and players, but the fact is players aren't covered because they don't fit they're not defined in the same way as somebody who's working at the Ford plant full time, and they're covered, by all the different protections that employees have because of our federal government, because of laws the Canadian government has. What ends up happening is these players are falling in the seams or cracks of the safety net that exists for the vast majority of Canadians, but not all. And this is one of the not all situations. Football players.
Exactly, and that's something that they're going to continue to struggle with. Unfortunately, they're going to continue to struggle with this because, again, the laws make it easy for the CFL to not have to deal with a bigger headache than I think this would cause. And that's why, and this is another reason why players have to think twice when they come up to Canada and play in Canada, because they understand that this could be an issue that they're going to have to deal with and have to continue to fight against, and it's a risk they take. I mean, in some ways, I guarantee some fans who are hearing this might say, "Well, they signed up for it. They know the risks." That's true, but that doesn't mean that they're not entitled to ensure that their quality of life doesn't get totally messed up because they played a sport that's physical.
I'm sympathetic for the players for that reason, this reason that we're talking about. The other reason I'm sympathetic to players is for the American players that come up here. Not that I'm overly sympathetic to American players as opposed to Canadian players, but in the situation of being an American player, when you come up here, here's something the shock that they receive when they realize the taxes that they have to pay and the fact they really get to learn something they probably most of them don't know is how less a Canadian dollar is than an American dollar. So, these factors that they must deal with, and this healthcare thing is just another thing that makes it hard for players to accept the, I guess, the relationship they have with playing football in Canada. Now, I have to say, David, I agree with people who say, well, they're independent contractors. They know what they're entering into. The question I have, and I apologize if I don't know the answer, but for those that play in the USFL or the XFL or indoor football, what kind of healthcare plans do they have? I would suspect that their healthcare plans are very similar to what the Canadian healthcare plans are. I don't see them treated like regular workers. That's something I should Google because I'm not sure about that. If you can answer that, that would be great, David.
Yeah, I mean that's when you're dealing with a situation where you're it's one thing where you're living in the place that you're working, right? That's your home. Players in the CFL, there's a lot of issues there. Now, I do think I remember reading an article a long time ago about how you know players when it comes to contracts and how players are signing those contracts. This is why this is why unions have become very important in the sports age today. Because let's be honest here, without unions, and I understand people have pretty much been anti-union in a lot of ways, this is what the union is supposed to work for. They're the ones that are supposed to make sure, okay, we're making sure that our players are getting, they're not paying arm and a leg because they suffered an injury in football.
Well, players, what I'm seeing here, David, is pro leagues in the U.S. The contracts are insured, and I think they probably mean just the NFL. But so far, that's what I'm seeing as far as
I
insurance for players is concerned. It's the
I
contract.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think that the XFL is exactly paying out massive insurance rates for contracts. I just remember in like the NHL, there were some players who've gotten contracts. Teams decided not to pay the insurance on the contract, and essentially the team takes the risk because yeah, they might be saving money on the insurance because they don't have to pay the insurance. Or if a player has a prior injury history, the insurance rates are so high, they're just like, you know what, it's not worth it for us. That player gets hurt, you're you might be regretting that decision to not get that insurance. And I think that's something that, um, and in the states is so much different, right? Because Canada, there's universal. I mean, Canada, there's healthcare covered by provinces and services like that in the states. Private,
Funded by the federal government, but yeah,
yeah, each it's funded by the federal government, but it's the provinces that
to
take up
execute the health care.
exactly,
Absolutely.
and and that's the part there that makes it tough for these players because they understand that it's not an easy situation that they have to go through and have to constantly think about that question, but it's a reality. It's a reality for them. They have to understand that it's a business, right? Just like the decision to provide universal health care is a decision by those in government because they understand that, I mean, we would love to give everybody insurance, but we we can't simply do it because people are paying, you know, people are in the, how are these corporations supposed to survive? I mean, best way to do that is you don't let the corporations have all that power in terms of how much they're charging people for insurance.
Well,
But
especially in a time and an age where the cost of healthcare is exponentially getting expensive, and we're seeing cutbacks. I mean, we're here in Ontario. We're watching a province that is taking away some procedures from the public sector and bringing them to the private sector. So the point is, though, that there are challenges with the healthcare system. Now, the Canadian players are covered because they're Canadian and in the province they get hurt, they're covered. They're not. The situation for them isn't as dire, and the protection lasts longer for them in the event that they be injured. But what we're talking about here is the game of football is a very tough game, and it sometimes we underestimate the commitment, that the players make to the game that we love watching and covering. And so this story is about having an opportunity to hear the issue that the CFLPA is raising, and each one of you can make your decision and decide how you feel it should be, it should be treated. All I know is compassion says that we worry about our fellow man, and when it comes to football players, even those of us that report on the games, we develop a respect for these players, and we get to see them in very human moments. For example, they show up at an interview, post game interview with their children. Nothing says they're human more than the fact that they're family men. No more than the fact that they're parents of very young children. So they're a family that sacrifices a lot. You know, Daddy getting hurt is not. The odds of him getting hurt are very high, and we'd like to see and know that they're taken care of when that happens. I think that's something we want for both the American and the Canadian players.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it's going to be a battle that's going to continue to go. I mean, this is not even a football only situation. This is a situation that everyday people have to go with, and I think that's something that I think people need to kind of sympathize with, is that they're not looking for special treatment. They're just looking for regular treatment in this regard.
Yeah, well, they're Americans that come from a place where healthcare is not a given, right? And now they come to a country and they work here, and they learn about the dollar not being as much worth as much, but they also learn about we have a system to take care of people and keep them healthy, right? Or to help bring them back to good health, right? So they're working beside these Canadian players. So you know, I would wonder if I was one of them. I would wonder, why is that guy who's playing beside me, his health care is taken care of, and all of a sudden, my bad knee needs a little more help, and it's not going to get it because the year ran out. I just I sympathize with them. I don't know if there's a solution to this that the Ontario government can come up with. Being the Ontario government that it is, our governments in Canada, federal or provincial, I say this, and I hope people in government don't get mad at me, but they're not very supportive of professional sports. They're not running to help professional sports. The first thing that comes out of political speakers and political people is, you guys are professional. You don't need our help. You don't need money from us to build a stadium. You're a business. You know, uh, Factories. I don't know if that's true either. They want some help with building stadiums, and our provincial and federal governments first say no, and then if they say yes, it's after a lot of pleading. And we're getting the Ontario games in here, or we're getting the Commonwealth games, or we're getting the Canadian games, Canada games here, or we're getting the Olympics here. Then some money gets spread out to stadiums and stuff. So it's not easy. It happens, but you know the fact is money, and wherever there are costs, there's a responsibility for finding the money to spend, and that's, I think, ultimately the issue. And I think the CFLPA is saying, look, our people are worth looking for that money. And I'm inclined to agree with them, but it's selfish on my part, because I
Yeah.
care about the CFL. I care about the players that are playing in the game.
Well, that's the thing, right? You're thinking, the league also has to be able to have a sustainable business model in some regard. This is why labor negotiations are always tough, because yes, you want to be able to say that you sympathize with your players, you want to give the players what they want, but at the same time, you have to understand that if you give the players everything they want, your business might not be able to survive. So what's more important when that becomes an issue, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's why, every time there is a labor negotiation, I'm not ready to just, um, you know, say, "Oh, look at this, CFL is doing their players dirty." I'm like, well, I got to also think about what they're trying to achieve as well.
Priorities.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to, is that, if the CFL got everything they wanted, it'd be easy. Just come up with what you need, hand the list over to the CFL, and the CFL says, okay, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. But the CFL has to think about what's possible as well. What can they do? What are they empowered to do? And you said the most important thing, but it's not like, even though it's important, I just don't think that's the way the Canadian Football League and the people in the Canadian Football League look at it. They're not saying we want money instead of players. They're saying, do we have the money for the players?
Exactly.
That's the question. So, to be clear, it's very easy to be extremely critical, but the players deserve our respect, and part of the mutual respect is to respect the fact that they come up here, they play our game, they do get paid. If their salary is, as I said, and as I characterized them to at the beginning, is that they are, independent contractors. People in this country are self-employed and have no benefits. All they get are the benefits that, if they get hurt, they go to a hospital, and OHIP takes care of them here in Ontario, as it works in every other
Mhm.
province. But when it comes to, special treatment, or recovery stuff to bring you back to good health, even people here have to do without some stuff. For example, you're not entitled to just look at healthcare when it comes to, being taken care of psychiatrically. You have to pay for that. It's not for free. Therapy is not something that's included in OHIP. There are a lot of things that aren't included in OHIP, and unfortunately, football players, that's where the void is for them. The things that aren't taken care of automatically. They don't have that kind of stuff. So this is not something just about football players. There are a lot of Canadians out there who don't have healthcare plans. It's the benefit of working for the country, for the province. Uh, you know, Being working for Metro Toronto, the buses. You know, they have health. They have. There are a lot of people who don't have those kinds of privileges, and they are privileges, especially if you have them and others don't. So healthcare in this country does have that. This thing that's going on with these American players, it's felt by some Canadians too. And that's part of the reason why it's very dangerous. And I think the provincial government has to be very careful not to show football players more favor, more privilege than other Ontarians who are in this province, who maybe want the same kind of healthcare but don't have it and can't have it. So, that's the complication here. As much as we like to think we're well taken care of as Canadians, we're taken care of better than most, but we're not taken care of 100%. 100% of us aren't taken care of 100%.
Yeah, it's never going to be that way because the amount of money that gets spent just won't be justified at all in the end, really, if you think about it too.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm not rooting for them to figure out a way to do that. Um, you know, Sometimes I can't help to be empathetic, and this is one of those empathy moments when someone's injured and they need help to be cured, or to be fixed, or to be, you know, brought back to the standard of health they had before the injury. I feel it's something that, uh, it's sad, but sometimes it just can't be done because of the way the system works and the uphill battle it is to find the funds to actually do that. And it's sad, but it's a reality. It's a reality that some people wake up to, and it's not something they see coming. That's the whole issue. Just like when they come up here, they don't see coming that, our dollar is 64 cents on theirs. There's surprises, and healthcare is one of them.
Always surprises for sure.
Okay, let's move. You got anything else to add to that?
Nope, I think we
Okay, We wore that one out.
I think so.
Let's wear this one out. What do you think about the tickets going on sale for TD Atlantic?
Well, let's see how quickly they sell out because it's the same teams again. So I guess they've got the fan bases know exactly what they're getting themselves into when it comes to planning this. Because it's not just a game. I think people don't understand this. It's not just a game. You have to plan your travel costs, your hotel, what you're going to be doing there, how like it you can't just say, "All right, I got my ticket," and then the person asks, "So how are you going to get there?" Like that's something that I think a lot of people need to understand, but I think sometimes the CFL gets a little bit guilty of waiting too long before tickets go on sale for these events. I can't remember, when did the tickets go on sale last year?
I don't remember because I didn't buy a ticket. I went via the press.
Yes, you did. Um,
Oh, I'm not sure about that. But one thing's for sure: the stadium that they had was full. It didn't look like they had any empty seats. It looked well attended, and I also know that it was a great game. Um, and I know that even though the partying was far far away from where the game was, it still was. I gotta say, God, time to be honest, Frank. It was not put together as well as I think it could be. The people that were planning on bringing in the Atlantic Schooners football team stepped away from helping or being a part of the Canadian Football League TD Atlantic. They really didn't have anybody who was. They didn't have anybody who from there that was as supportive about bringing the game there and making sure that the local contribution was at a high standard. Now, I was only at the one last year. I hadn't been to any other ones, but I did talk to people while I was there that went to other ones, and there was a little bit of disappointment on how it was organized. I truly hope that this time it'll be better organized. Do I understand why people said that? Um, a little bit, I do, but I didn't see it with mine own eyes. So, you know, I worry sometimes about the broken telephone. You know, somebody says something, but there's another reason why they're saying it that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. So, not saying that people lied to me. I'm just saying people sometimes they spin things in their own mind when they tell you. But I can say that it could have been better organized. It wasn't like a Grey Cup, that's for sure. It was a long way from what a Grey Cup's like.
Yeah, oh no, for sure. And here's the thing: if this, don't expect the CFL to put the same amount of, um, I guess, attention into this that they would the Grey Cup, because the Grey Cup draws so much revenue that it's understandable why the CFL wouldn't be going all out to ensure that this event is on that level.
Well, maybe now that that they've had an opportunity to put the pandemic behind them, maybe because they had the opportunity or have the opportunity to be more financially secure, maybe there's more they can do. Um, the two fan bases, the Argo fan base and the Saskatchewan fan base, even though the Argos are the technically the home team, there are plenty of Saskatchewan fans, and they're accustomed to a raucous great time at the Grey Cup or when they go on the road to watch their team play. The Argo fans as well, the ones that go are the ones that always go. There's always quite a few of Argo fans that travel well. They don't get the credit for it.
Yeah.
I've watched them do it. I've been in the middle of them, and they do contribute. But what I'm hoping is there's more of a, I don't know, more of a celebration. I guess the one comment that came about being there, and I think it had more to do with the fact that the game wasn't being played, you know, in
Mm.
Halifax, was there's a game here? There's a CFL game here? Really? Like, it wasn't top of mind in Halifax. They've got to do a better job of that this time.
Well, and you think about it, it's supposed to be a big thing for the city, right?
Right.
If the fans are saying, "Well, it's not being promoted that well, if I'm the city, I'm like, "Well, what are we not doing here?" Because this is an opportunity to attract more people to come during a very peak time of the season. I'm going to come out and say it. Halifax is not a very cheap place to be in the summertime, and there's a reason for it. It's a tourist destination. I mean, obviously, it's a place where a lot of people live, but in the summertime, it is one of the hot places to go in Canada. And now you're going to get what, 10,000, minimum 10,000 people. Majority of them are coming from out of town. Yeah, you got to be making sure you're taking advantage of this and making it an experience, because it just, you see how much a Grey Cup brings in, because it's the experience of when you're at the event, not just for the game. I think if you're the CFL, like, that's something that they should be working at with Halifax's city council and the province of Nova Scotia as well, to ensure that this event benefits the province. Because if the province doesn't see the benefit, if the city doesn't see the benefit, any hopes of expanding out there are going to go through one year and out the other.
You slid into a place I wanted to talk. Oh boy, because this is something that Halifax, the reality that Halifax is going to be dealing with up until this year and this game at this time. The only expansion talk has been maybe not just Halifax, maybe Moncton, but the Atlantic provinces. There's a new kid in town. With the purchase of the Montreal Alouettes, Videotron is now a factor, and Quebec media now, a wider swath of Quebec media now has a motive to work with the Montreal Alouettes and the Canadian Football League and Randy Ambrosie have made noises about something called pop up stadiums. And the reason that's becoming a factor is because there is a bit of a hum out there talking about maybe Halifax isn't where they go. Maybe they go to Quebec City. Ball's yours.
Hey, you know what? You go where the interest and the investment's going to be, not just because you want to get a team in that city. When you look at what the NHL is a perfect example of this. When they expanded, I'm not talking about relocating a team. I'm talking about expansion. When Vegas said, "Oh, it's going to cost us $500 million for an expansion fee," yep, we'll do it. That right there from the NHL was just like, okay, these guys are serious, because no owner is putting up that much money if they don't think that they're going to be getting that money back in some way, shape, or form. Seattle, in the same way too, they paid $650 million and redid the arena there, and now that team is a part of the fabric of a great sports town in Seattle. Like, I equate Seattle and Halifax do have some similarities where they're on the coast, right, and all those things. But Halifax, the issue they have is they don't have the population density that a lot of these other cities have. Not that, Montreal,
It's
Toronto.
always the same story,
Yeah,
because what you're talking about is you're not talking about Canada, you're talking about North America, because that's the context that everything when it comes to expansion in North American professional sports, that's where the subject goes. The reason Hamilton didn't get a team, um, is part of the noise they made there about that, and it was a choice between them and Ottawa. And politically, Ottawa was more. Um, it got more of a push because it's the capital of Canada hockey, and Hamilton missed the boat because now you're going to places that can afford to put teams in expensive arenas, that are funded in the U.S. It's not like here they ask for money in cities to bring teams because there's an economical rainfall that happens when professional sports arrive. There's all this money that comes into town, all these visitors, all these tourists, all these hotels get booked, interest to come to town to go watch the hockey game, and then they hang around for a while, and spend some money. To your point, that's the motivator. Somebody who can provide the money to support the fact the team exists in the Canadian Football League. Unfortunately, the stadiums have to be built by the people who are using them.
That's the biggest issue is the Canadian climate also doesn't really justify having an open air stadium when it's only going to get used.
You're not going to find the money for what closed one.
No, like you look at
A lot of people in Saskatchewan wonder why they didn't close theirs.
Right? I mean, you look at BC Place is the only stadium in the league that is a closed dome, and it's funny because that's like the last
But
place.
it's not heated. But it's not heated.
It's not heated,
It's a
unfortunately.
tent.
Yeah, but it protects you a little bit from the elements, right? That's
Yeah, it's not exactly 20 below there every day.
no, right? And so I don't remember how much. I mean, the problem was, I mean, the good thing for the Lions was this was built for the Olympics, or like it was built. Sorry, it
Yeah,
was
way back.
open. It was built way back. Wasn't built for CFL football, right? But it got retrofitted. It got it got renovated for the Olympics, and that allowed the door to be open for it to be a place for the CFL to thrive. They didn't have to spend the money. To,
BMO, Tim Hortons Field, they exist because of national, North American, international sporting events. The Commonwealth Games is why, Tim Hortons Field exists.
exactly, and so
Edmonton's called Commonwealth Stadium for a reason. Olympic
exactly,
Stadium in Montreal is called it for a reason. Sorry,
exactly.
David. I didn't mean to go on that big a run, that long a run. I could still go because Calgary's the same thing.
Well, and that's the issue Calgary's having right now, right? Calgary is if out of all the CFL teams, Calgary is the one that needs a new stadium.
The most.
Sure, the
Yes.
most. And the battle between, because let's not forget, Calgary is owned by an organization much like MLSE, Calgary Sports and Entertainment Group. They're not ponying up the hundreds of $1 million for a stadium. They're not going to do it because does the investment justify the return? That's what goes back to my point earlier. And so, will Calgary do it if the city kicks in money? I do think asking for a corporation that makes a lot of money to have to ask the city to give them money for a stadium. I'm on the fence about it because I do think if it's going to benefit the city, if the city's going to get something out of it, there should be an investment because it's a part of that city.
But
But do I,
David, the point of what Randy Ambrosie and the Canadian Football League said when they raised the specter of pop-up stadiums, what they're saying is they're accepting the reality that a Canadian Football League team cannot justify the building of a stadium based on as many as, if they make it, to the playoffs and finish first, at, 18 games, that, and if they're lucky to be the home team for the Grey Cup, 19 in a season. That's what Hamilton's hoping to do. The two exhibition games, the 18 games in a season. Um, that's all they can draw money for. It's not baseball. It's not 162 games. It's not hockey, 84 games. It's even soccer. Which is the popularity of soccer is creating an opportunity for stadiums, and where the CFL is starting to contemplate, for example, Hamilton that has the CPL at their stadium, help justify the existence of that stadium. There's lots of reasons to have a stadium, but that's the important thing, is that you have to add them all up and they have to work into the black, not the red.
well, and that's it right there, right? The you're asking the city to take on debt in a time where, unfortunately, there's a lot of debt going on right now, right?
Well, there's a lot of services that aren't. We started this program talking about healthcare. There's services in cities and towns that are strained because of the pandemic. And now you've got inflation. Now you've got, taxes. Now, people are paying more in taxes. In other words, there's less money staying in the kitty for the town and the cities of our communities. Yeah, money's hard to come by. It always is hard to come by. It's just getting harder. And that's bad news. And that's, I think, why the CFL has lowered its expectations, and they've already established, pop-up stadiums aren't bad, guys. We just got to do it for, 10 games, 10 games a year.
That's the tough part there, is that the lack, when you look at how other cities are doing it and look at how the states, I look at the states and how they invested in their sports markets. It's just, it's a part of their fabric. And I don't think a problem here is football, while it's a part of the fabric, it doesn't have the same amount of commitment that you want to see from everywhere, right?
It's just not it's not there aren't enough games, David. There
Yeah.
just aren't enough games, and the commitment. It's ironic, isn't it? You would think with the fewer games it'd be easier to commit to the team, but the fact is not everybody can go to every game. Whatever sports team you're talking, I mean, I know there's people that go to every all 81 games in Toronto for the Blue Jays. I know that happens. I know there's people probably who go to every games, that the Maple Leafs play, you know, but there's a lot of people that don't get a chance to go because of how much it costs. The point I'm making is that there has to be a way that there's enough people that go to the games. There's a lot of money left on the table when it comes to the Canadian Football League, and every year it's getting to be more and more of a challenge of ensuring they can take all that money that should be on the table. This is again Nova Scotia, Quebec, or Quebec.
Mhm.
It's getting to the point. My preference has always been Halifax. It's always been Halifax for whatever reason. But the fact remains, reality sometimes may become an issue if Halifax isn't ready or willing to make the commitment required by the Canadian Football League, which is it's a moving target. We're learning that it's a moving target. But if they're not willing to at least satisfy that moving target, and another group comes in and says, you know what? Maybe we will have a team in Quebec. Maybe we're looking forward to the battle between Montreal and Quebec in football. Maybe we remember the excitement that the games were and how exciting they were, those games between Montreal and Quebec in hockey. Their rivalry would not be any less than that of Toronto and Hamilton, or Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, or Edmonton and Calgary.
No, no, definitely not at all. And that's where I think it gets lost, is that, yes, I understand the big cities have the big draws and the media stuff, but unless these cities are willing to push it, because I think a lot of these cities get, it's underrated how much they actually can be a good sports town, because we've seen it. We've actually seen how they support events, right? How like they can do it. It's just they don't see it. They don't believe that the long term investment is really worth it, and that's the other problem.
You wanted to talk about Vince Magri. Got a minute? Jordan Williams could be a
Yeah,
starter with the Argos.
Three Down Nation's done a great job of just going to getting these clips from all these different GMs and coaches, and Vince Magri's saying, even though Enoch Mwamba is back in the fold, it doesn't guarantee that he's going to be keeping that job as the starting linebacker. And I like that, because Jordan Williams, the last thing you want to do, you invested a first round pick in him, which not a bad deal for the Argos. But you also have to look at the fact that Enoch Mwamba wasn't sure if he was going to play, and you got to make sure that you're protecting a bit of your future as well. So I do like that they're not guaranteeing that Enoch Mwamba is going to start. I think he deserves to start just based on experience and all those things, but nothing gets a player's juices flowing more than letting them know that there's going to be a little bit of competition for them.
And using last year as an example, Harris's injury was blunted by his replacement. You have to have another option. And depth is everything in the Canadian Football League. And yes, Williams he will be a good part of the depth. And what we've known with the Argos, what they did, and defensively how they're set up, everybody plays every position. And so, if they're talented enough, the defensive coordinator will find a place to put them.
Yes,
And that's the way the Canadian Football League and the Toronto Argonauts worked last year, helping themselves to get to first and also get to the Grey Cup and win it.
definitely.
Last word on you, David.
Um, I can't wait to be talking games in the draft soon. We're getting close.
Absolutely. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk. It's where we talk football. Airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. And if you like stuff like this, we have other news and entertainment and other sports programming for you to watch. You can follow us on SpanglishWorld.ca or Candid Frank Live or Candid Frank Stanisci at YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.